Welcome back to WagerTalk TV. I'm Marco D'Angelo, joined in studio with my partners in crime. We've got, you know him as Teddy Covers, Teddy_Covers on Twitter. Ralph Michaels, Cal Sports LV.
I disagree. Go ahead. Make a point first.
Oh, my God, these two guys. Well, it is March Madness, and we are going to discuss betting tips and strategies for March Madness. Teddy, I know you've got a lot of things you want to say. I'm going to let you start. You're all pumped up today.
Well, it's March Madness. You got to be pumped up, you know. If you're not excited this week of the year about betting sports, you're not a sports bettor.
There you go.
And that's the truth of it. So, I mean, I wrote a bunch of stuff down, what matters for March Madness, some betting tips. But I'm going to start off the top with two things. Number one, last week was last week. This week is this week, and especially when you're talking about big favorites in the first round that used a ton of energy in winning their conference tournaments last weekend, that opening round game, they may not always look as good. So, and teams even as dogs that went, hey, they busted their balls to, win the conference tournament. And now you're in a neutral site venue, far from home. It's just not the same. So recognize what you saw last weekend does not necessarily carry over to what you're going to see this weekend. And this one, I think, it's just common sense. People look at seeding so much. So it's, the 5-12, the 4-3. Seeding doesn't matter. Seeding is for suckers. Point spreads matter. Point spreads are what you should be paying attention to. You want to fill out brackets? Sure, fill out brackets. We're about gambling. We're about picking point spread winners. I could give two you-know-whats about seeding. Seeding doesn't matter at all.
We've seen it time and time again whenever you've got people doing seedings that don't bet and what the gambling market is. A lot of times you see things a little different with
it's
it.
It's the same as the AP poll. Was
right.
UCF the fifth best team in college? Would you favor UCF over every team in college football except 4 other teams?
No, of course not.
And, again, and the 5 and 12 seed, you have the 20th team against the 48th team. If you have the 20th and the 48th team playing in a conference game, you don't even think a wink if one upsets the other. So the perspective is, you're exactly right, and I couldn't agree more. You talked about double-digit favorites. Double-digit favorites the last 4 years, 30 and 36, 45.5%. So on the negative side, yes. But favorites of 20 or more, actually 10 and 7, 59%. So again, not a huge market size, but there is one system I'd like to share. Double-digit favorites with a win percentage of 90% or more. You're only going to have a handful of teams. This year it's Houston, Gonzaga, Virginia. Those teams, 3 and 16 against the spread. If you have 30 wins on the year with a 90% win margin, your goal isn't that first game. You could care less about that first game. Your goal's the Elite Eight and forward. Now, Virginia is a little different dynamic, having lost last year. I don't know if I would play against them, but just as a whole, I mean, you have the elite team laying double digits, 3 and 16 against the spread. The other thing I want to talk about is having the better coach in that second game of the weekend. The first week, you have 4 days to prep. Your entire team is focused on that game plan. You only have 1 day. Yes, your coaches have been studying this team nonstop for the last 5 days, but the team hasn't worked on them. The better coach in that turnaround second game, to me, is vital. And I actually almost double my coaching grade in that second game compared to the first.
Anything you want to add?
I want to talk about futures for a minute, because I know there are so many people out there that really want to bet NCAA tournament futures, and especially odds to win it all. And I'm telling you, again, we talk about the difference between recreational players and professional level bettors, or even serious bettors. We're not putting money in the future market that way because, when you talk about the favorites, there's zero value in betting your Dukes and your North Carolinas and your Gonzagas at this stage of the world. When you're talking about your long shots, you're going to get significantly more return on investment if you just play them on the money line every game throughout the tournament. So to bet a team on the futures, that's the lazy way. And yeah, you get a ticket, you can tweet it and show everyone, look at this ticket. That's what suckers do. That's not what sharp bettors do. It really is an enormous difference. And it gives you more flexibility as well when you have the opportunity to, if you're playing them on the money line, you can bet half one game.
Right.
You don't have to hedge off your wager to hedge your bet.
You know, and just take the points if they're an underdog if you want to in one of those as you're rolling it along.
Well, if you're picking anyone but Duke, you're going to be a dog, a significant dog. I mean, and you know, one more point to that, Teddy, is you can get crazy and you think teams may win a few games, but every team in the last dozen years that has won the national championship, with the exception of UConn, has been a Ken Pom top 20 offense and defense.
Yeah.
There are only 7 teams that fit into that mold, so don't get crazy picking a future because you think I've got 100-to-1 odds on a team. There's only a handful of teams that realistically have a shot to win 6 straight games, have the coaching and have the player mentality to get through that stretch. So again, just to compound your thought about the futures, they aren't a smart bet because those 7 teams are favored so heavily, and those others might look nice, but they're going to be good for a bookmark or wallpaper after the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8.
And one last thing on you guys with the big favorites in the first round games. One of the reasons, too, that the dogs do sneak in a lot of times on that back door is coaches know they're coming back and playing in 2 days, but they also want to get some of their bench players in to get them in the record book so they can say they played in the big dance. You're going to have more chances to get your bench guys in. I'm talking deep in the bench.
Sure. In round one.
In round one than later on. So that's another reason why you have to look at the dogs in that first round.
Absolutely.
Good stuff, guys. Hey, $2 Tuesday. Every Tuesday at WagerTalk, you can get the hottest handicapper at WagerTalk's best bet for just $2. Check it out each and every Tuesday at WagerTalk. We'll be back with more here at WagerTalk TV.